The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Welcome back to one of our newest shows, Spy for Rent. He is Kurre. We ain't got to use, there you go. You get the hat on, brother. He's got the glasses on. We don't use his last name. You can figure it out if you need to figure it out. But his name is Kurre. We just use first names here. I'm Tony Kurre on Tony Kurre Radio. Of course, this show can be heard at least 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. We play it at the same time every single day. I think it's at 4 o'clock Central Time. And then, of course, if you miss the show, you go wherever you get your favorite podcast. We're available on every major indice. We're not, there's some podcasts out there that don't have everything. We have everything on everything. All right. So we're everywhere. And of course, you can watch us right here on our YouTube channel, our Tony Kurre Radio YouTube channel. So you can actually see us. And this is where we get the majority of our viewers and our listeners. 790-3051, 790-3051, Spy for Rent, Spy the number 4 Rent, or FORrent.com. First of all, I know you're super busy. That's a good thing. I love when my clients are super busy because you make a little jack. Anything interesting sliding your way from the private investigative / spy business? Anything you want to share with us right off the top?
We're getting a lot more, last week we talked about bug sweeps. Mm-hmm. That's still trending upward. But another thing is the cell phone forensics. So I've had 3 of those cases this week. So that was, you've got to be careful who owns the phone. Do you have a court order? But we can break, the phone that I was given, imagine a phone like this that was ran over by a car.
Okay.
And hasn't been accessed in 10 years. And we got text messages off of it from 10 years ago that we needed for the case. And we're able to break into the phone. We're able to get everything off of it. So that's another big deal, whether it's a murder case, where were they at certain point, whether it was you're trying to find pictures, videos, any kind of location data, or just text messages.
For something like a murder case, I can certainly understand where a judge is going to sign off on that in a heartbeat. When you're just talking about a case, whether a guy's cheating on his wife or not, and you're just talking about domestic divorce type of case, I know that they have, and particularly in divorce cases, you have discoveries, which is, by the way, the biggest pain in the butt in the world, because I'm not a paper guy, and you have to go through a discovery in it. You have to basically give them everything they're asking for. And that goes from bank statements to receipts to all kinds of stuff. But the one thing they did not ask for is the cell phone. And I was a little surprised by that. Is that because the cell phone is such a personal piece of our being now that what's it take for you to go to somebody and say, listen, I need your cell phone? Or will most people sign off on that? Will most people not sign off on that? Because it is such a personal thing.
So a lot of times they ask for it now. They look for any kind of messages. So whether it's social media or text messages, any medium that you can message, right?
But you can do that without using their cell phone, right? I mean, you go to their social media pages and look at their stuff. But I mean,
somewhat. So it depends on how it's stored, Tony. So usually what happens is people think they're smarter than me and they don't give all the information in discovery. Then their attorney goes, hey, Kurre, can you look at this? And then I'm like, it doesn't look like they gave everything. Then they go to the judge and I say specifically why I can say that they did not give everything. And
can you give an example of what you're talking about?
So let's look at WhatsApp. WhatsApp's a app that everybody likes to do. Well, they will, give me all your WhatsApp messages, any kind of, but so WhatsApp does 2 different, when you download the messages, media is in one file and then the actual text is in another file. So people will do, they'll just send the messages, for instance, right? And it'll say on there, media omitted, blah, 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 going through all the stuff. And it's like, where's the media? And then I say, hey, we need this. And then sometimes, they, or Facebook, for instance, they will show, if you look at it, when you do the data dump, it'll say, like secret message, right? So there's disappearing messages and stuff like that. And then we say, well, you didn't give all the messages. And then what'll happen is they give us the phone maybe, right? Mm-hmm. And then once we get the phone, we say, it's the messages to this dude that you supposedly weren't talking to is on here. And sometimes we'll get everything right there. Sometimes we'll be like, hey, I don't Facebook message. Go over to WhatsApp, it's safe. Or go over to Signal, it's safe. Because, even though Facebook's getting end-to-end encrypted as well, And then we'll go to there. And then, it's one of those things, we get a little piece and then, oh, they didn't give everything. So we get the next piece. Or they delete something and they think that it can't be found and we recover it.
I think that scares the hell out of a lot of people right now. Let me just ask you this. If we have a case and you have a married couple and she is wanting custody or whatever, and she's saying that he's cheating on her, I can't think of any of that, or that he's taking money out of her account. How easy is it to get his cell phone? Is that something that judges will normally sign off on? Because again, that seems like it's a really personal piece of property to have to hand over. Or will they say, listen, you give us all this information and we won't have to ask for it? Because I know some people that would freak out if they had to give their cell phone up.
Yeah. They if there's a reason for it, like a reasonable reason, I've seen a lot of judges lately let me go in there. Now they might give a stipulation, like I'll go in opposing counsel's office and you can only look at this. This is the only thing you're allowed to look at because maybe it's got some kind of proprietary business information that they say that they're going to need to be kept secret, right? So, but at the same end of the day, usually both attorneys know me. Yep. They know Jeff. They know everybody on my team. The judge knows us. So they know that if they tell us we can only look at this, that's all we're going to look at. But people leave clues. Like I said, they're not as smart as they think they are. And even guys that work in cyber, that they think they can only give this much. We'll find that little clue and we'll bring that to the attorney's attention and they'll bring it to the judge. And then we'll get the next clue and we'll piece it together.
I remember one particular case, Deflategate, several years ago, the New England Patriots, Tom Brady. Evidently, there was some incriminating stuff on his cell phone. Obviously, we're not talking about murder or someone cheating in a divorce case, but it was about inflating the footballs. And he had this thing where he would go through his phones and evidently he would get rid of his phones every other month. He had like a throwaway phone or something, or so he said. Most celebrities have a real phone. They have a jackass phone. The jackass phone's for friends and people that call all the time, blah, blah, blah. And the other one's a very personal phone. They don't give their number out to anything. And so when they went back to find that information, they realized that the phone was thrown away. It had been thrown away like 2 weeks prior to them asking for it. What a lot of people didn't realize is just because a phone's been thrown away doesn't mean the information is gone. You can still go in there and get it. You don't need a SIM card. You don't need anything. You can still go in there and find it, right?
Yeah. So, well, it depends. So sometimes people back up their messages, whether it's an Android device, Apple device, and you can get into that with approval. Like I said, some people, like we could use this. I think Jules Kroll, he's a famous private investigator from New York, right? And he said, you can use these talents for good, for evil, or simply for profit, right? And so we have to follow certain rules, but somebody with bad intentions could definitely break into your iCloud and get it if they wanted to. Yeah. We need a court order to do it, but that stuff's out there, and you got to be real careful. I give burner phones to clients all the time, just like you're saying. So you have, and some celebrities don't have two phones. Tiger Woods, for instance. Yeah. If he had two phones, he might still be married to his his other wife. But anyways, but even if you have a burner phone, sometimes we find it at the burner phone and we get into the burner phone. So, if you're doing stuff, give us enough time and enough resources and we're going to find it out. But there are some ways to mask it. But basically, if you send something, whether it's an email, a text message, expect whatever you send can be recovered. That's having an expectation of that. And if you follow that rule, then you won't have any incriminating evidence on stuff. There's a lot of things that I won't. We meet clients a lot of times, and we'll get we'll do like what's called a white noise generator. And with the white noise, that's Jeff calling me right now.
Oh, yeah. Tom, we're busy. We're doing a show.
Yeah. Tell him where is he at?
Yeah, really.
He's working. But with the white noise generator, we'll make sure that nobody is recording, or if they are, they can't hear. And then also with the bug sweep portion, we'll make sure nothing is recording. We'll check for a different stuff giving off a RF frequency or whatnot during the meeting.
You mentioned a minute ago, the attorneys. We've had several attorneys on this show. The judges. You guys have been doing this for a long time. 790-3051. That's why you're the best. And everyone knows that if they use your service, it's all above board. So that's a great thing because there's a lot of businesses out there and PIs and stuff that are doing it on the side, trying to do a side hustle, and they don't know what the hell they're doing. And most of the stuff's not even admissible in court. So make sure you go the right route and do it with Spy for Rent, spyforrent.com, 790-3051. To go along with that, and again, I drive around with a little notepad that I have in the car, and I've got several email questions I want to throw at you this week here on Spy for Rent. We certainly take your emails, info@TonyCurryRadio.net, info@TonyCurryRadio.net. This from Pete in Birmingham that goes along with what you were just talking about. Is there a statute of limitations on information you can get for somebody if someone's been married for 20 years and they want to get some information that was beyond the marriage itself, maybe a month before they got married, just to show some type of character role or how they were? What kind of stuff is permissible? What kind of stuff can you go back as far as you want? And then it's up to the judge whether he wants to say, listen, that happened 35 years ago. We're not using that.
And well, it depends on what we're talking about. Yeah. So, I can uncover anything. And if we do background checks, we might go back 20, 30 years,
mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? See what we can find on stuff. Now, if you did something 30 years ago, that's up to the employer or whatever to determine whether, that was just a one-off thing. We're usually looking for patterns. Cheating, for instance, one of those cell phones I was telling you about, we recovered text messages from like 10, 15 years ago that we're looking for.
Wow.
And it's a child custody or child support issue. And it was a money thing that we're looking for. So that's not always, so that's up to the judge whether it matters or not with that. But with like cheating, for instance, if you cheated before you got married, as soon as you sleep with your wife again, you're considered reconciled, right? So if she knew, so usually it doesn't matter once you get back together again. Yeah. Say, wife cheated or husband cheated. Once y'all get back together, usually, and maybe it will matter. Like I said, maybe not, because you're considered reconciled.
It happens a lot more than you think, too. Just in the heat of the moment, you may be broken up. You're throwing vases at each other. You know that someone's doing something wrong. And next thing you know, in the heat of passion, that's considered reconciliation. And all of a sudden, that kind of throws a wrench in the case big time. 790-3051, spyforrent.com. Eden in Northport wants to know, Jacques Cousteau was part of those Pink Panther movies. Those Pink Panther movies? He was the private investigator. She wants to know, what type of animal is Corey? She's watching. She must be interested because she put a growl at the end of her email. She said, if you could say there was an animal that you best represent, Jacques Cousteau was the Pink Panther. What is Corey?
That's an interesting.
You want to get back to that one before the end of the show?
Yeah, let me ponder on that a little bit.
By the way, Eden, he's married. So leave him alone. I'll do some own investigating. Don't be hitting on my guest, man. Don't be hitting on my guest. Something else, and a friend of mine was talking about this show too. He asked, why don't you ask Corey how he became a private investigator? I know you kind of went through this last week. You were very, very fortunate that it was something that happened early in your life. You've been part of our armed forces, and thank you for all your service. And you kind of knew right off the bat this was something that you really wanted to get into. But are there classes that say, I want to become a private investigator right now? I'm 59 years old, and I decided I want to change my life. Are there classes to take? Can anyone be a PI? Do I need licensing? How do you get all that stuff?
So they changed the law in the state of Alabama to where you have to, if you have no work experience that will be entered in, like law enforcement, military, et cetera, that you would have to apprentice under somebody to do that. And that's a good thing because, like you said, there's a lot of people that were hanging their shingle up as a private investigator and they're handling serious cases. You got high net worth divorce, millions of dollars on the line. Maybe it's not high net worth and those kids are worth way more money than, that's not money. Yeah. It's priceless. Mm-hmm. And you've got that online. Or a murder case. You didn't murder somebody and they're trying to prove, you got this investigator. They need to have experience. So anything I do, and I get mad. There's a lot of investigators. They'll call me, "Hey, Corey, how do you do a background check?" I'm like, "For what?" I was like, "Why are you selling these services if you don't know what you're doing?" So military, college. So, and you don't have to go to college to be a private investigator, but I'll say this, I still take college courses to this day. Cause you've got to stay with the times, cause I'm going to be the best, whatever I'm doing, it's not going to be a lack of effort, and I'm going to keep up with the times. So, right now I'm taking accounting courses on better, making sure that I can do financial investigations better. Can I still do them? Yeah. I can figure out how much money's in your bank account right now and what you spent if I have a permissible use, but I'm always trying to better myself. So, I went to school, had an ROTC scholarship, Arabic and military science was my undergrad. Okay. Then in the military, we learned about, I was a military police officer. So we learned about investigations, and we did investigations, all kinds of investigations, and also security stuff. So everything from doing undercover drug busts and planning those operations in the military to also 3 doors down, or Gary Sinise is coming in, and we need to do the executive protection. We need to do the traffic plan, the whole security for the installation, for instance, as well. So we've got that piece, so the experience piece. And then, while I'm doing all this, I always was in school. So whether, Penn State, I was doing graduate work for geographic information systems. That helps us with a number of things, whether it's doing a reconnaissance before an operation, looking at the maps, the elevation, where can we, it could be something, in the military, a lot of times you're worried about angles for like snipers, and you're worried about snipers at a concert, something like the Vegas thing. And you're looking at where could somebody shoot from a building. But it also applies to my dad. My dad's a retired colonel and still works as a contractor, and he loves photography. And he told me it's a lot like long range shooting, son. And you've got to have those angles, the lighting. So all those mapping stuff comes in. So where can I set up that I can get that angle and that shot that I need with the camera as well? But cyber, digital forensics, for instance, I take courses on digital forensics. I continue to take courses on bug sweeps. And it's not just a bug sweep course, for instance. I'm learning about different signals and how they work. And because Elon Musk likes to talk about this too. Whenever you want to learn about something, you start at the basics of it, and then you work your way up. A lot of people want to just go straight into bug sweeps, right? Well, if you don't understand how radio frequencies work, you're not going to know. If you don't know how people build these things, then you're not going to know. And like I said, I have an MBA as well. So I understand business. When we're doing investigation, due diligence investigation with a merger and acquisition, I understand. I can read a P&L. I understand all these things. I know what they're looking for with these things. And I'm constantly trying to better myself. And I pay my team. Yeah. I pay money for my team to learn these things too. Because everybody, if you come on, we use a lot of people. We have a network all over the world. But if you're on my team full time, I ask them, what are you going to specialize in? Yeah. And if you got the work ethic going and they're on my team full time, I pay for them to make a specialty. And that also is because I'll be doing surveillance probably till I'm, 70 years old, 67 years old, but at the same time is I want my team to be able to go into a managerial role and be able to have a career, because I'm looking out for them. They might not want to do that at 60, 70 years old. But if they can do asset investigations, if they can do social media investigations, there's so many things that they can do from a computer, right? Yeah. And so I'm always thinking long-term about my team, not only from broadening our skill set as a company, but also helping them and making sure that they are making this a career. Jeff put, I think, 2-3 kids through college. This is a business for us. Yeah. This isn't, we're going in here and we're just, winging it. No, we plan these things. Every operation that we do, there is a specific process. A social media investigation, there's a specific process. A bug sweep, whether it's a car, an office, a residential area, I have a process that we follow. And we're constantly updating these processes through training and what we're seeing on the ground. So,
brother, I feel your passion, man. I could let you talk for another 30 minutes, but it's only a 30-minute show. I got goosebumps right now, but I'd hire you in a heartbeat. I may hire you just because I love your work ethic. That's fantastic. Hey, you mentioned too about money, and money's always, when you talk about divorces, money's always going to have a play into what's going on, and particularly when you've got something where it's been set up for quite some time. You got someone pigeonholing money. I love having cash in my pocket. I hate using my card because I've been ripped off so many times. I've been somewhere where I've been charged 3 times for a hot dog. With cash in my pockets, I even hate going to places that won't take cash. But I used to go get $300-$400 in cash just to have in my pocket, small expenses, get some dip or whatever like that. I could use, a $10 bill. You'd hide your money, put it in the freezer or whatever. Now you got Cash App, you got Venmo, you got all these different places where you can put money. Has that made it more difficult for you to find money in particular situations?
It can, but that's what the bridge is. So for those type of investigations, you need 2 things. You've got to understand accounting. You've got to understand asset investigations, but you've got to also understand the cyber side of things. So you can't just be, I'm just a money guy with that. You can't just be, I'm just a cyber guy. Yeah. You've got to be able to bridge that. And so intelligence to me too, Tony, I feel like people thought people that knew a lot of information were intelligent. Like, because, where'd you get your, I remember going to my grandparents' house and they had a huge encyclopedia. Who knows how much they spent on it. Mm-hmm. Right. And it used to be when I was growing up before Google was popular. If we had an argument, it was go to the encyclopedia. Yep. And we'll prove it. Now it's Google. So you have all the information at your fingertips, but you've got to be able to discern what information is good. All right. How did they do this study, et cetera? But what I'm getting at is you've got to be able to piece these things together. So you have an overload of information, and then you've got to filter what you need and dump what you don't. And if you can't, military, I like to say military, if you're doing there's a battle drills for how to react to contact, do all this stuff. Okay. Or an ambush. You're going to set up an ambush. And let me just tell you, the ground is never going to be the same. You want to do that perfect L-shaped ambush. Mm-hmm. Well, what if you can't? Well, maybe you do it into a V, maybe, depending on the terrain. So, and that's real intelligence to me, is being able to apply all the knowledge you have and use all the knowledge that you can pull from with the internet and everything else, and use that to get the outcome that you need. And that's what you have to have an investigative mindset for. And you can't, when you get these barriers, you can't hit a wall and say, oh, I can't do it. You got to say, your mindset has to be, okay, what can I do next to figure this out? And that's what makes it hard for these cryptocurrency and everything else. You have to have a knowledge base of both to be able to pull from. And that means you got to understand it from the ground up. You can't just have you can't just start doing an investigation and at that high level. You've got to go back and you've got to study from the ground up all those things that you would need to be able to. Yeah, I mean, you got to take a college course just on crypto. I've tried to understand it. I've had several people tell me this is the way to go. I know you can pay your power bill now with it. You can pay your car bill with it, but I'm still like, again, cold hard cash. You just can't follow it, and I still love it. Hank in Aniana wants to know, what's the best parking lot in Birmingham to do surveillance? That's a great question. Well, let's not say the best parking lot because we don't want to give it away. I know for a fact Jeff used to always talk about gyms. If you had someone that you thought was cheating or something, you just find out, okay, do they have a gym membership? And you go sit in the gym parking lot, and chances are you're going to see something in a gym parking lot. I know there's several gyms around here. They turn out to be places just to meet people more so than work out. People just show up just to meet guys and girls. Are there particular parking lots that are better than others? Have you found yourself in the same parking lot more than once? Yeah. So I go throughout from Huntsville to the beach, man, all around. I'll be like, oh, I set up a observation post right there. We got different OPs everywhere. So, you can kind of use, but nothing's really, it depends. So what's the lighting? It could be the best parking lot ever during the day, but if there's no lighting, with night vision, you can do long range shots, but you got to start. it's a lot bulkier. You got to start adding a PVS 14 and screw on and make sure everything's going 100% lining up. Because night vision, usually you need to be closer, right? And there's some different things you can do. You can shine IR lights out there that the person, just somebody walking around, can't see. But if you're looking under night vision, you can see it.
I'll bet you got some cool. I'll bet you got some killer night vision. It's probably not like that Jurassic Park night vision crap. You probably got some good stuff, don't you? What does he say? If it's heavy, put it down. It's expensive. Put it down.
Oh, night vision is expensive. And some things are getting cheaper. Some thermal devices, which thermals can't go through, like windows and stuff like that. Usually, those things are pretty expensive still. So you're talking, but there's clip-ons too to cell phones now for like bug sweep purposes and whatnot. Used to, you had to have this huge thermal, like you'd see mounted on a machine gun in the Army.
Yeah.
PVS 14s and analog. So analog night vision is still miles ahead of digital. When digital catches up, and it's usually the latency. It's like the lag time, right? So it's not digital. It's not real time. It's like slower.
Gotcha.
You're not getting. So it's like when I pan, it just looks weird, right? But the analog stuff, PVS 14s, that a good one's going to run you $3,000-$4,000.
Yeah, better you than me. That's good. Susie in Tuscaloosa wants to know, what's the biggest difference between being a spy and being a private investigator? You are both. And this is I had this actually written down in my book because I knew you do both, but they're two totally different things, although they kind of lap over each other. What would you say are some of the subtle differences between being a spy and or a private investigator, or are you both?
So the biggest difference I would think is I've got to be able to, blend in, look like maybe a hobo, or maybe go into a business meeting and look like a business person. But at the end of the day, a spy isn't going to go in that courtroom. I've got to go in the courtroom, and I've got to have the credibility and the resume to be able to, one, testify, and then speak clearly, make sure that I'm articulate and short, to the point when it comes to courtroom testimony. And that's another thing. You could get all the information you want, but if you can't articulate it in a way that everybody can understand in simple terms in a courtroom, then you're not going to be a good private investigator. So that's the two different hats, I would think.
Are you called into court a lot?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I would think, I know a lot of people don't like to bring extra people in because normally they have to pay these people if it's a doctor or whatever. And sometimes people just don't want to be part of a court case. And obviously, if you're talking about bringing in witnesses and stuff like that, it can get really, really ugly and super expensive. One final question. I'm going to hold on to this because we're up against it, but I do want to, you mentioned murder cases earlier, and you and I briefly talked about Mayor Woodfin's new plan on how to tackle the issues we have in the Birmingham area. Obviously, we've set a record for homicide, so we're going to get into that a little bit later on next week. I kind of want to talk about, we've been talking a lot of spy stuff, a lot of divorce stuff, but I want to kind of get our hands dirty into murder stuff, because there's got to be some things that you see that perhaps other people don't see. And I'm wondering how often you will make a phone call and say, listen, I just noticed something here at this particular scene, and maybe you guys missed it. Do you want this kind of information? So we'll get into that a little bit later on. Tell people how they can hire you. And I also got an email here. They want to know if you're bringing back spy stories. Jeff used to do spy stories years ago, and they're really funny. And I said, I'll ask, because we love spy stories. So if you got any spy stories, and of course, everything is already done, we're complete. We're not going to recognize anybody by name or anything like that, but just stories that perhaps have been kind of loopy or kind of crazy over the past. I'd love to hear those as well.
Yeah, we can do the spy stories.
Right. Well, we'll pick it up next week. Well, next week we'll make sure we put a little spot just for spy stories. You can share a story from your past. How's that? About some crazy cases. Yeah. All right, tell people how they could find you, my man.
So phone number 205-790-3051. Intake at spyforrent.com or spyforrent.com. Either of those, fill out a contact form, call us, send us an email, and we'll get back with you.
They're the best. I've used them, and so has everyone else in Birmingham. Check them out, 790-3051, spyforrent.com. This is Spy for Rent. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, Tony.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.